Okay, so thank you so much. So yeah, I am doing my master's still in archaeology at the University of Pretoria. And today I'm going to be presenting on the first year of my master's. So I'm still currently completing the second year this year. And today we'll be looking at closing the distance between people and heritage, presenting an interactive traveling museum to the public. So it's important to know that this project forms a part of the Hunter-Gatherer Archaeological Research Project, or HARP, which studies hunter-gatherer sequences in the Middle Limpopo Valley. Hunter-gatherers in this area contributed to the rise of the Mapungubwe Kingdom, located in the modern-day Mapungubwe National Park. Hunter-gatherer sequences in this region are still poorly understood, even though they were a contributing factor to the emergence of such an important kingdom in Southern Africa. One of the goals of HARP is thus to share this information and research with the public through community outreaches. And one such outreach initiative is the HARP Traveling Museum, which aims to bring heritage closer to people. The aim of my master's research specifically is to determine how effective a traveling museum display is at improving access to heritage, as well as educating and informing the public. This is because even though the main goals of museums in the 21st century are to safeguard cultural heritage, as well as to inform, educate, and entertain the public, these are still not activities that are available to all. So gaining access to heritage, specifically at museums and heritage sites, is a problem faced by many in today's society. Factors such as entrance fees, cost of transportation, or inaccessible displays all contribute to the more inaccessible nature of some heritage collections. The obstacles that people face to access museums and heritage sites are exacerbated when heritage is located in places that are physically far removed from the public. So just so everybody knows the area that I'm talking about, this is a map of Southern Africa, and it shows the location of the Middle Limpopo Valley. That will be the gray block there in the sort of middle. And then as you can see, what's very interesting about this area is that it spans across the borders of South Africa, Botswana, and Zimbabwe. Okay, so now that we have a bit of a more overview, I just want to give you some background information on previous traveling museums, as well as the concept of interactive displays. So the concept of the mobile or traveling museum is one that became popular during the middle of the 20th century. One of the main goals was to make these exhibits available to people who were unable to visit museums or heritage sites. Some examples include the UNESCO 1962 Traveling Museum Initiative in Africa, as well as traveling exhibitions and mobile museums in the Ukraine during the 1960s. But the most noteworthy one is the Namibian Mobile Museum Service in 1996, which was based on a similar service that was in Botswana at the time. Many of these traveling museums were successful and extremely popular with the public. However, they did face some common challenges such as funding. The interactive element in museum exhibits developed during the emergence of new museology or new museum theory. This turn began during the late 1970s and early 1980s, when museology began to radically reassess the role of museums in society. This turn was characterized by museums aiming to become more inclusive and to provide better access to exhibitions and cultural heritage, hence the production of interactive displays. So now moving to the HARP Traveling Museum, we have a picture there of what it looks like. A traveling museum is an ideal method to investigate the effectiveness of mobile exhibits to improve access to heritage, as it provides the opportunity to access a significant amount of people and examine a wide range of public responses to mobile displays. The HARP Traveling Museum consists of a wooden frame and 5 display containers. The frame was designed to hold the containers as drawers, where each container can be taken out and opened for the public. The 5 displays are arranged following the stratigraphic process to visually illustrate the law of superposition and how a site might be excavated. And that you can see with the colored sides on each of the drawers. Since the drawers and the presentation of the traveling museum follows the stratigraphic process, the first drawer that is discussed contains the oldest artifacts and is placed at the very bottom. The presentation therefore begins with the early and middle Stone Age display. The artifacts on the left here are examples from the early Stone Age, while the artifacts on the right and the blade in the middle are examples used to explain the Middle Stone Age. Next, we have the later Stone Age. Here we again have some stone tools from this period, as well as land snail shell that was a material used to make beads. We also have ostrich eggshell beads there in the top right-hand corner, as well as some burnt animal bone and animal teeth. Our next display is the rock art. This painting is a recreation of rock art found at a site in Venetia, which falls within the Middle Limpopo Valley. It depicts a herdsman and 4 fat-tailed sheep, and is used to discuss the contact between hunter-gatherer groups and, for example, pastoral or farming communities. The next display is the Iron Age, and it discusses the aforementioned farming communities and the types of activities that took place during this time. Then our last display discusses experimental archaeology and explains how artifacts such as hafted tools and ostrich eggshell beads were produced and used. All the artifacts in this display was produced by experimental archaeologist Dr. Nicole Sherwood. Next, we'll be discussing how the museum is then presented to the public. The presentation of the displays discusses the 5 topics mentioned above. Artifacts function as examples of past activities that are discussed in the presentations. People are also asked about their impressions of and opinions about the artifacts. This encourages more open communication and engagement between the traveling museum and the public. In the case of bigger presentations, the displays are passed around the audience, and the presenter refers to a PowerPoint presentation or poster boards if a venue cannot accommodate PowerPoint. People are encouraged to spend as much time with the displays as they would like. The traveling museum will also still be available for viewing on the HARP website along with the questionnaire. This is to make the traveling museum as accessible as possible for those who cannot physically attend presentations of the museum, but that do have internet access. Various community engagements are planned at which the HARP Traveling Museum will be presented. These include engagements with homeschool groups at the University of Pretoria and at the University of Mpumalanga, as well as public engagements that would be held in Mbombela, Pretoria, and the All Days area. The collection of data as well as the analyses will take a qualitative and quantitative approach, following scholars such as Higgins, who conducted the earliest known observations of museum visitors, and Bonia et al., who have found aspects of both approaches to be useful in museum visitor studies. Questionnaires as well as semi-structured interviews will be used to collect data in order to better understand people's experience with the museum. The questionnaire and semi-structured interviews will focus on determining the effectiveness of the traveling museum by asking questions about what participants have learned, their engagement and experience with the museum, and whether they felt they had easier access to heritage. The open-ended questions will be analyzed by using the inductive approach, while the closed-ended questions will be analyzed using statistical analyses. The questionnaire responses of people who have better access to museums will be compared to the responses of people who do not. The same type of comparison will be made between the responses of people who attended in-person presentations and those who viewed the museum online. This will specifically help to determine the impact of the tactile elements of the displays. So participants who completed the field test questionnaire reported an overall positive experience with the HARP Traveling Museum. They described the museum as informative, good for rural areas, and pushing beyond the normal museum experience. They also agreed that the museum made it easier to access heritage, since some of them have never visited a museum or heritage site before. The biggest reason for this was the location of museums and heritage sites that can be challenging to access. It is further evident that the tactile elements of the displays resonated with the participants because all of them reported having interacted or touched the artifact to some degree. It is expected that the traveling museum will be used as a template by museums or fellow researchers to create similar displays This is possible because these displays can be created to discuss any topics, and these topics can be easily changed. Heritage can be difficult for all in society to access, especially when it is located in museums or heritage sites that are far removed from the general public. The Harp Traveling Museum and the Connected Master Study aims to bring people closer to heritage and determine if mobile displays are the best way to achieve this goal. Thus, further, public opinion is overwhelmingly positive, and it is expected that similar feedback will be gathered at the upcoming engagements. It is also expected that the Traveling Museum will be used as a template for other researchers and traditional museums to create similar displays that can improve the public's access to heritage. So thank you for all the sponsors, as well as my supervisor and everybody that has been helping and assisting with the Traveling Museum and its presentation. So thank you so much.